Up until the 1950s, drug addicts were considered incurable and oftentimes ended up in jail. All of that changed when Chuck Diedrich opened a support group for alcoholics and drug addicts in a rundown Santa Monica storefront. This support group would later turn into the first inpatient rehabilitation program, but what started as a life-changing program quickly took a dark turn. Welcome to Let's Be Briefed. I'm Sydney.
And I'm Sara.
And this week we're talking about Synanon. Have you heard of this at all besides what I told you?
Literally nothing. I know nothing about this.
I hadn't heard of this one either, and I'm very surprised because it was like big. Like it was an entire like cultural movement.
Oh,
and
wow.
I've never heard of it.
Maybe since it was so long ago now, no one talks about it?
Yeah, but this was 60s, 70s.
Oh. Is this why Oh, well, so this was because people were taking so many drugs in the 70s?
Well, it started in the 50s because they had no, like, literally up until, we'll get to it, but like up until this started, no one knew what to do about drug addiction. Like, nothing at all. Like, there was no plan. They just said, oh, well, that sucks. Guess you're lost to the sauce. Like, there was nothing. There's actually, I watched the first few episodes of, HBO has a docuseries called The Synanon Fix, Did the Cure Become a Cult? And there was a guy in there saying that, like, in his teens, he was addicted to heroin. And at one point, they just locked him in a, like, psychiatric hospital for 4 weeks. Like, there was no therapy. He wasn't going to therapy. They just kept him in a room to keep him away from drugs.
For 4 weeks.
For 4 weeks. I mean, I'm sure he got, like, fed and stuff, but, like, all they did was physically keep drugs away from you and hope that you never, like, there's nothing at all. Or you went to jail.
Right. Wow. Yeah, just sweat it out and then you're released and then you didn't fix the root. Yeah, you just do it again.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in 1958, former alcoholic Chuck Diedrich, who found sobriety in AA, started his own group after taking LSD. As I kind of said earlier, at the time, drug addicts... Oh, no, I didn't say this, actually. At the time, drug addicts weren't, like, welcome in AA groups because it was considered, like, a completely different problem because it wasn't, like, alcoholism, even though now I think we kind of recognize all addiction as similar.
Do they allow people now?
I don't think AA does, but aren't there other...
Yeah, I think there are other groups, support groups, I guess.
Yeah.
When was Alcohol Anonymous formed?
I don't know.
Surprised that was formed.
Let's look it up.
Yeah, I guess that was a problem longer than drugs were a problem.
1935.
Oh, during the Depression.
Yeah.
Right after. I guess that makes sense.
Well, and wasn't that right after Prohibition too?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe they didn't accept drug addicts.
But he really started it as, like, an AA group because he just thought it was great and wanted to start it. But then, like, addicts started coming and he was like, yeah, I mean, I guess you can come. So, what made them, like, really different from other groups was that they had a practice they called games, where the members would essentially, like, they would all sit in a circle, and they would just scream at each other. Like, whatever they were thinking, whatever their opinion was about someone, they would just yell, like,
oh my god.
like it was just like scream therapy. Like just get out every
Mm,
brutally honest thing you've ever thought about someone. Just yell
right.
it at them as a way to like express rage, I guess.
Okay. I mean, I guess if everyone's doing that, then I guess
Right.
there shouldn't be hard feelings or
Well, and I
anything.
think
But
part of it, like a lot of the people in the series said that it was like very, like sometimes you need to be told
yeah,
these
like,
things. And it was
yeah,
actually like really, really helpful for them to hear these things because sometimes, especially I think when you're dealing with stuff like this, you're not really real with yourself. You know, like
yeah, right.
sometimes you need someone to be real with you and tell you how they feel, and then you have some self reflection and you say, oh, yeah, they were absolutely right. You know, like there's this
Right.
level of self reflection that would happen after it, and it really did like help people.
Yeah, that's helpful. 'Cause yeah, I feel like you're taking these drugs to get away from reality and to get away from like how shitty of a person you are maybe or like to
Right. Shame, right?
yeah, right. So it's like hearing the actual reality kind of helps you come back to yourself.
Right. Um and they had two rules. The golden rules were no drugs. Like you couldn't be there on drugs. You could not do drugs and be part of the group.
Yeah,
And
those
no
are two.
physical violence. So you could say anything you wanted, any way you
Hmm.
wanted. You could scream it, you could do whatever. And you couldn't, like, no one could touch each other. And I
Yeah.
think part of what was good about the game is you could fight back. Like, you could stand up for yourself, too. You almost had to.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I
I
feel like that'd
think
be
that's a
really
little empowering.
empowering. Yeah.
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 Because maybe you don't have anyone else in your life that's even standing up for yourself, like for you. And then,
Right.
yeah.
You're like forced to
Okay.
stand up for yourself.
Right.
Um, so the way that the program started was that there's this couch in the storefront, and you would come in and you would kick the habit cold turkey on the couch, and all the other members would like help you through it. Like they'd hold your puke bucket, they were there talking you through it, and that was really really revolutionary at the time because it was addicts helping other addicts,
Yeah.
and that hadn't been done before, and it was also people who knew. You know, sometimes hearing advice from people who haven't been through something isn't super helpful. Like how helpful is it to for someone to tell you, "Oh, well you just have to do this." Well, have you ever done that? Like these people know
Right.
that it's not easy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
I
they
think
know
that makes
exactly
it
how hard it is.
right. It makes it more encouraging.
Yeah. But so they would just sit on this couch the whole time till they're
Clean? Yeah. Until they
how long is that?
like days.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
Yeah, they would just stay there and
That is
everyone would be
dedication.
around. Yeah. Well, I
Right.
think it's like that's a human life, right? Like it's not
Yeah.
I think I would be pretty dedicated to helping someone through that if I don't know, you know.
Yeah. If they really want to get better, and yeah, like you said, you've been there. You were them at some point, so
Right.
yeah.
Um so the program then turned into a year like inpatient program, and they had I think this is so they had like I feel like I put this somewhere else and I don't know why I didn't put it right here, but they bought a building in Santa Monica that I mean it was like a rundown shitty building, I guess. Not it
Yeah.
wasn't great, but they would and they had people living there, and it was like supposed to be like a 1 year program, and then people kept getting extended because they were like, I'm not ready. And it, like
Mm.
eventually Chuck decided that you just had to live there forever because they would just go back to their addictions. And like that actually
Mm.
was the case quite a bit, that
Mm.
once people were out there and there was temptation, like in the movie there was they were talking about, or the show, I guess, they were talking about how no one had ever left and stayed clean, but as long as you stayed, you were clean, which I think that becomes not true later, like at that time. And this was still pretty early.
Okay. But that is already kind of problematic.
Right. But, you know, I mean, there are people who, like, do, like, they have methadone for the rest of their lives. Like,
yeah, but you don't have to stay at a certain place.
well,
I mean, so
right.
at first, he didn't let people leave, or he just was
No, I
really
mean,
like,
people chose to stay. People
okay,
wanted to be there. Like, this
okay.
wasn't, like, a forced thing. It was completely voluntary, and it was actually, like, free to attend. Like, there was
Oh,
no cost to be a part of this at all.
oh wow.
They
Okay.
just, and so Chuck was I should have mentioned this. Chuck was in marketing
Hmm.
before this. Like, I think he had a pretty, like, lucrative job, but he lost it when he became an alcoholic. Like, he lost
Oh,
everything. Like, he had hit rock bottom
yeah,
completely.
that makes sense.
Um, so he's kind of he's a business minded guy, and like the program was obviously free, but like to gain money, they would just send the addicts out. Well, they're not addicts anymore. The members
Yeah.
out to like get donations. And on this show, that one of the people said nobody's better at hustling than an addict. Like, these people, like, give them a task and they'll probably get it done. Like, they've, if you
Yeah.
can survive through addiction, like, you're probably pretty good at getting stuff, you know? Because, I mean, if
Right.
it's a bad addiction where you're literally at rock bottom, which most of these people, I think, probably were, and they ended up getting like a ton of stuff. Like, people were donating like whole cows and like
Oh, wow.
furniture and money, and like, I mean, they were really really good at getting stuff. So
Damn.
then, and they had like little side jobs, and like eventually they had enough money that they owned gas stations, they owned apartment
Hmm.
buildings, they owned, like, they had people like dedicated to like cutting up the cows that they were given, like, to feed
Yeah.
everyone. They,
Wow.
and
Like,
it was like kind of like a commune where you like worked for room and board. So like members were working at these gas stations to make money to keep the program alive.
right,
But
and
they
to
were
be able to
all,
stay there still.
yeah, and they were all doing
Yeah.
it like voluntarily. Like, anyone could leave
Yeah.
if they wanted to.
I mean,
But
that's good.
yeah, and it was so like life changing for them that why wouldn't they want to help other people like in their position, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And pretty early on, Chuck ended up marrying a member whose name was Betty. And this was like at the time, because he's been married twice before this, also, I should add. This is
Oh.
Chuck's third marriage. But like at the time, this was absolutely crazy because Betty was black and like formerly a prostitute.
Yeah, I could see that being an issue
Right, in the
for.
50s. Like,
Oh, yeah.
this is pre-integration. Like, this was a huge deal.
Yeah. Wow, he was ahead of his time.
Yeah, like, very, I think, well, I guess the way I probably think about it is like when you've hit rock bottom, you know what it's like to have everyone like hate you. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you know what it's like to not have anything, so I think it makes you a lot more open-minded to other people. You know what I mean? Like, it's just
Right,
they're
yeah.
all the same, dealing with the same problems. Even though he was never even a drug addict, so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. How did he get into this if he wasn't? He just
Well,
thought that's a need that exists.
I think cuz it started as AA,
Right.
and
And then just
then
people start coming.
yeah, it like a few people showed up and wanted to see if it worked, and then it did work, and then he was like, "Oh my god, this is like
Right.
nothing has ever worked before. So this is crazy, and like we need to share this with as many people as possible."
Yeah. His intentions were definitely good.
Yeah, at the beginning.
Right. Okay.
Um And they were also racially integrated, which was obviously unheard of at the time, and especially for Santa Monica. Like, that was a pretty, like, it was a affluent beach town.
Right,
so,
yeah.